The wind howled across the alien forest, carrying dust, sharp scents, and strange sounds. The tall red trees creaked above as night fell. Somewhere, something growled in the distance. Jared tightened the rope around his last trap and stepped back. It was a simple snare. He had made dozens like it before. Food was running low, and he hadn't eaten meat in 3 days. If he didn't catch something tonight, he might have to chew on tree bark again. He sighed, looking up at the alien stars. They looked nothing like Earth's sky. He missed home. He missed people. But he was alone now. A crash landing had stranded him here 2 months ago. His ship was gone, his team scattered or dead. Only Jared remained. He'd built a small shelter, gathered tools, and survived each day. But it was getting harder. He checked the trap one last time, then walked back to his hut. The fire was dying, and the cold was creeping in. He wrapped himself in a thin blanket and lay down. As his eyes closed, he whispered, "Just catch me something this time." A scream cut through the silence. Jared sat up wide awake. His heart raced. It wasn't an animal's cry. It was high-pitched, almost human. Another scream, this time closer. He grabbed his stun spear and ran toward the trap. Leaves slapped his face as he pushed through the thick underbrush. He reached the trap and froze. There was someone or something caught inside. Not a beast. Not a monster. A girl. She was curled in the net, her silver skin glowing under the moonlight. Long white hair spilled across her shoulders. Her arms were thin, and her body shook with fear. When she saw Jared, she screamed again and tried to back away, but the ropes held her. Her big, glowing eyes were filled with terror. She looked at him like he was going to kill her. Jared stepped back slowly and dropped his weapon. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, holding his hands up. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the gesture, still shaking. She watched his every move. Jared moved to the edge of the trap and carefully cut the ropes. The girl didn't move. She seemed too scared or too weak. Finally, the last knot came loose, and she tumbled to the ground. Jared didn't touch her. He just waited. The girl crawled backward, her hands trembling. Her eyes darted toward the forest. She wanted to run, but her legs gave out. She collapsed with a soft whimper. Jared took a step forward. She flinched. He knelt and slowly placed his water flask on the ground between them, then pushed it toward her. "Here," he said gently. "Water." The girl stared at it. Her lips were cracked. Her hands shook as she reached forward. She sniffed it, then drank greedily. Minutes passed in silence. Then her body started to relax just a little. Jared sat cross-legged, a few feet away, watching her carefully. She looked young. Maybe his age, maybe younger. Her clothes were torn and dirty. There were bruises on her arms. She'd clearly been running. From what? He didn't know. "Where did you come from?" he asked softly. Of course, she didn't answer. He tapped his chest. "Jared," then pointed at her. "You?" She stared at him, confused. Then she looked down. He tried again. "Jared," he repeated, slower. He smiled, friendly. Her lips moved. A soft sound came out. "A word?" He leaned closer. "Say it again." She whispered something that sounded like Nira. "Nira," he said. She gave a small nod. The wind blew again. Nira shivered hard. Jared stood up and motioned for her to follow. She didn't move. "It's okay," he said, pointing toward the trees. "Shelter, warm." She didn't understand, but she didn't want to stay here in the cold. Slowly she stood up, wobbling on weak legs. Jared walked ahead, glancing back to make sure she was still behind him. When they reached his hut, he opened the flap and motioned her in. Nira stepped inside carefully, like a frightened animal. He gave her a corner near the fire and passed her a blanket. She grabbed it like a lifeline. He didn't sit too close. He didn't touch her, but she still watched him all night, eyes wide, body tense, waiting for him to turn into the monster she expected. He did single quotes that he gave her food. He gave her silence. When she finally closed her eyes, still afraid, still unsure, Jared whispered to himself, "What the hell did I just catch?" She didn't sleep. Even after the fire warmed her skin and the blanket wrapped her tight, Nira kept her eyes on the human. Her body was still, but inside, fear roared like a storm. He had fed her, given her water. But monsters always smiled before. They bit. When the fire turned to glowing embers, Jared finally lay down. Turning his back to her, that's when she moved, slow, silent, ready to run. But as soon as she stood, her legs gave out. She gasped and hit the ground hard. Jared woke instantly and spun around. "Hey, easy, easy." Nira crawled back against the wall, heart pounding. She lifted her shaking hands and cried, "Don't eat me, please, please." Jared blinked. He didn't understand the words, but her meaning was clear. She thought he was a predator. His heart broke a little. He reached into his pack and pulled out a soft cloth and another water flask. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently. Nira didn't move. So Jared slowly placed the water near her feet and backed away. He sat back down near the fire. She watched him like a cornered animal, then snatched the flask. Her lips touched it, and she drank desperately, choking a little. Jared saw her shoulders shaking. She was crying and drinking at the same time. He said nothing. Just let her cry. An hour passed. She didn't run again. She didn't talk. But she looked at him differently now. Her breathing slowed. Her hands no longer clenched into fists. The fear in her eyes softened into something else. Confusion, caution, maybe even curiosity. In the morning, Jared stepped outside and looked at the pale sky. A cold wind blew through the trees. He grabbed 2 protein bars from his supply and walked back inside. Nira sat upright, alert, but not tense this time. He tore 1 bar in half and handed her the bigger piece. She stared at it like it was a gift from the stars. Then she took it and bowed her head low. Jared was surprised. "You don't have to do that," he whispered, but she didn't understand. Still, she ate. And for the first time, she didn't cry while doing it. Later, Jared built a small fire outside to heat water. He was boiling roots for tea when he noticed her watching him from the doorway. Carefully, he picked up a cup, blew on it, then offered it with both hands. Nira stepped forward, just 1 foot, and took it. Their fingers brushed. She jumped back quickly. But she didn't run. She just stood there, staring at her reflection in the tea. That night, Jared placed a flat piece of wood between their sleeping spaces. "A wall," he said with a smile, "so you feel safe." He didn't know if she understood. But when she lay down behind it, she didn't shake this time. In the quiet, Jared spoke to the stars. "I don't know who you are," he whispered, "or what happened to you, but I swear, I'm not like them." Nira didn't sleep again. But she didn't watch him the whole time either. She looked at the stars, through the open flap of the shelter. And for the first time since she'd been captured by those slavers, she didn't feel like prey. When morning came, she was still waiting to be hurt. Nira had slept with 1 eye open, heart ready to scream, legs ready to run. That's how it always was before the pain came. But this time, it didn't. The human had stayed behind the wooden divider all night. No hands reached for her. No whisper in the dark. Just his soft breathing. Peaceful. Like he had nothing to hide. Why? Jared woke to the sound of movement. Not danger, just soft feet, pacing. He opened 1 eye. Nira was staring at the tools on his wall. A knife. A flare gun. His old military badge. She wasn't stealing. She was just looking. "Morning," he said softly. She jumped and turned around. Eyes wide, Jared sat up slowly, showing both hands. "It's okay." She pointed to the badge. "Human?" she asked. Jared's eyes widened. It was the first time she spoke a human word. He smiled. "Yes, I'm human, Jared." He tapped his chest. She repeated, "Jar, Ed." then touched her own chest. "Nira." "Yeah," Jared said, smiling. "Nira." That morning, he let her follow him into the forest. She stayed 3 steps behind him the whole time. Every crack of a twig made her flinch. Every gust of wind sent her eyes scanning for danger. Jared picked fruit, checked his traps, and explained things with his hands. "This one is safe. This one burns your tongue. This one gives you gas, bad idea." Nira didn't understand most of it, but she smiled once. A small smile, soft, like the first flower after winter. Back at the camp, Jared tried to fix a broken solar charger. He sat in the dirt, tools in hand, cursing quietly. He didn't notice Nira sitting beside him until she gently took the wire from his hand. She twisted it with nimble fingers. It clicked into place. The light blinked green. Jared blinked. "You fixed it." Nira looked away shyly and nodded. "You're full of surprises," he said. She didn't know the words, but she felt the tone, and it made her cheeks warm. Later, as night approached, Nira sat by the fire, watching Jared prepare food. He noticed her staring. "What?" he asked, chuckling. She pointed to the meat in the pan, then to herself, then made a biting gesture. Jared frowned. "You think I'm going to eat you?" She nodded slowly. Jared dropped the pan and knelt in front of her. He tapped her chest, then shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "Never." Then he tapped his chest. "Protect. Safe." She stared at him, confused. Her eyes shimmered with something that wasn't fear anymore. It was hope, a dangerous thing for someone like her. That night, he didn't build the wooden divider. He just gave her the blanket and turned his back. She sat in silence, staring at him. He didn't move. He didn't even look at her. She waited. 1 hour. 2. Nothing. He just slept like a man at peace. Why? Why didn't he touch her? Was he broken? Or was he different? She moved quietly, just a little closer. Close enough to hear his heartbeat. She sat down beside him and whispered a word in her own language, one that meant, "Maybe I was wrong about you." The forest mist was thick that morning. Cold, quiet, still, and in that stillness Nira ran, barefoot. Fast, silent like a shadow. She didn't even look back at the sleeping human. Jared woke with the soft sound of leaves rustling. His hand reached out to where she had been. The blanket was cold. She was gone. His heart sank. Not because she ran, but because she ran alone, out there injured, unarmed, afraid. And this world? It wasn't kind. Nira's breath came in short bursts as she ran through this strange forest. Sharp branches scratched her arms. Wet mud clung to her legs. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. She didn't know if Jared was truly different or just pretending. He had been kind, yes. But monsters wore masks, and she couldn't risk it. So she ran. Deeper and deeper. Until her foot caught on a twisted root. She stumbled, fell and cried out as sharp pain shot through her ankle. She landed hard, face first, into the dirt. Back at the camp, Jared grabbed his pack, his medical kit, and sprinted into the trees. He followed her footprints. Easy to track, small, light steps, one dragging a little, then a crash. A cry. Not far. He pushed through the brush and there she was, curled up under a tree, holding her ankle, shaking in pain. "Nira." He called out. She gasped and tried to crawl away. "Don't," she cried. "Don't touch me." But Jared dropped to his knees and gently put his hands up. "It's okay," he said softly. "Let me help you." She froze. He reached into his bag and pulled out a soft bandage, then pointed to her ankle. She hesitated, then nodded once. She winced as he touched her foot. It was swollen. Bad. Jared worked quickly but carefully, wrapping it tight. He didn't speak, didn't smile. His face was full of focus, like helping her was the only thing that mattered. When he was done, he looked up. Their eyes met. And for the first time, Nira looked at him without fear, just quiet wonder. He carried her back, not over his shoulder like a trophy, Not like something he owned, but gently like she was something rare. Something fragile. Her head rested against his chest. His heartbeat was steady. Strong. Safe. Back at the shelter. He set her down on a bed of soft leaves near the fire. She looked up at him. You didn't punish me, she said slowly. He sat beside her and shook his head. Why would I? Because I ran. He smiled faintly. You were scared. I would have run too. She looked at the fire. Her voice was low. They always punish when we run. Jared's smile faded. He didn't ask who they were. He already knew. Slavers, raiders, the ones who broke her, the ones who made her believe kindness was fake. Later, she touched the bandage around her ankle. Then she looked at him. You carry me, she said. Jared nodded. You didn't have to. I wanted to, he replied. Why? He paused, then answered simply, because you're not a thing to trap. You're a person to protect. Nira blinked fast, like holding back something heavy. She didn't speak again that night, but when she fell asleep by the fire, her hand reached for his. She didn't let go. It wasn't the fire that warmed her that morning. It was his hand still, gently holding hers from the night before. Nira opened her eyes slowly. Her body still hurt. Her ankle was still wrapped, but her heart felt strange. Not afraid, not numb. Just quiet. She looked at him sleeping across from her. Jared, the human who hadn't touched her without permission. The one who gave food before questions. The one who gave warmth without asking anything back. Why? Jared stirred awake to find her eyes on him. Morning, he said, voice rough from sleep. She didn't speak, but her hand was still holding his. He noticed and didn't pull away. Instead, he gently squeezed her fingers. Something flickered in her gaze. After breakfast, some roasted root and sweet fruit. They sat outside in the quiet light of the rising sun. Jared handed her a small stick and started drawing shapes in the dirt. Look, he said. This is home. He drew a simple square with a fire inside. She watched closely, then took her stick and drew beside it what looked like a tall tower and a broken chain. He pointed at it. Your home? She nodded once, then added a little figure standing alone under the tower. He frowned. You were a prisoner? Her eyes lowered. Yes. They sat in silence. Bird-like creatures chirped above in the trees. Finally, Nira looked at him. Why are you so kind? She asked. Jared blinked. That was the clearest sentence she had spoken in his language. He swallowed, then said simply, because you deserve kindness. She looked away. No one ever said that before. Well, Jared said, then they were wrong. Later, he gave her a small brush and a can of clean water. She stared at it, confused. He smiled. You need a bath. She blinked. A what? He pointed at her arms and face. Dirt, gone. She giggled softly for the first time. I don't remember last bath. He helped her sit by the warm spring behind his shelter. He didn't watch. He stayed nearby, but faced away, letting her feel safe. She washed her arms, her face, her hair. The dirt ran off in streams. What appeared beneath surprised even her. Her skin wasn't just silver, it shimmered, soft like moonlight. When she returned, wrapped in a clean cloth, Jared turned to look, and his breath caught for a moment. Not from attraction, but from the strange peace on her face. You look different, he said. I feel new, she replied, touching her own cheek like she wasn't sure it belonged to her. You are, Jared said softly. You're free now. Her eyes widened. Free, he nodded. No one owns you here, not anymore. Her lips parted slightly. She wanted to believe him, every word, but trust was like broken glass, slow to fix. Still, a part of her heart reached out and whispered, maybe it's true. That night they shared a warm bowl of stew. She fed him one bite. He fed her the next. No words, just soft smiles, and eyes that finally didn't ask, "Will you hurt me?" but instead asked, "Will you stay?" The storm came with no warning. Cold rain slammed against the shelter's roof, and wild winds howled through the trees like lost souls crying in the dark. Jared tightened the flap of the tent and tossed more wood into the fire. His hands moved. Fast, practiced, but his eyes kept flicking toward Nira, curled up in the corner, her arms wrapped around her thin body. She was shivering, not from fear this time, but from cold. Her blanket was wet. The wind had gotten in through a tear in the shelter wall, soaking her sleeping spot. The fire wasn't reaching her. Jared saw her lips trembling. Her teeth chattered quietly, though she tried to hide it. He took off his jacket, crossed the space between them, and knelt. "Here," he said softly, placing the jacket around her shoulders, but her body still shook. Her silver skin was cold to the touch. He looked at the fire, then at her, then back at the fire, and made a choice. "I can make a heat pack," he said, pointing to a cloth and hot stones. "It's safe." She nodded slowly, but then, her voice small, uncertain, cut through the storm. "Can I stay closer to you?" Jared blinked. She had never asked to be near him. He looked into her glowing eyes. There was no trick, no test, no fear, only a silent need for warmth and trust. He nodded once. "Of course." She scooted slowly across the shelter floor, close enough to feel his body heat, close enough for her shoulder to brush his arm. He didn't move. He didn't turn. He just sat beside her. A strong, quiet wall of warmth. Minutes passed. Then she leaned her head gently on his shoulder. He looked down. Her eyes were closed, but her hand reached out hesitant and found his, fingers curled. She sighed softly. And for the first time, she fell asleep by choice. Jared didn't sleep. Not yet. He sat still, afraid to move, afraid to break the fragile trust in her fingers. He looked at the roof as the storm pounded above and whispered, "Who did this to you?" Hours later, when the storm finally slowed and the fire dimmed, Nira stirred beside him. She looked up. "Why didn't you touch me while I slept?" Her voice was calm, not accusing. "Just curious." Jared looked at her gently. "Because you were cold, not an object." She stared at him. Then whispered, "No one's ever said that before." He smiled sadly. "Then no one ever deserved you." She sat up, her eyes still locked on his, and did something simple, but powerful. She leaned in and placed her forehead softly against his. It was a gesture from her world. A sign of complete trust. Not romantic. Not lustful. Just pure connection. "Thank you," she whispered. And for the first time, he felt like he hadn't just saved her. She was saving him. 2. She was smiling when the first shot rang out. A blue flash tore through the air, barely missing the side of Jared's shelter. He dropped the fruit he'd been peeling. Nira froze. Smile vanished, and her breath caught in her throat like ice. They had found her. Jared ran to the edge of the trees and saw them, 3 figures in dark armor, moving fast and silent. Alien SLAVERS. Hunters. They carried shock sticks, nets, and a collar that still had her name written in their language. They weren't here to talk. Inside the shelter, Nira clutched the blanket Jared had given her. She heard the boots, the heavy steps, the buzz of weapons charging up. She had felt this fear before. Captured, bound, broken. But this time, something was different. This time, she had someone. Jared grabbed his old stun spear and stepped in front of the doorway. His eyes didn't blink. His hands didn't shake. "You want her?" he growled. "You go through me." One of the slavers laughed in their harsh tongue. "Human, she is not yours." "She's not anyone's," Jared said. "She's property." "No," Jared said, lowering the spear. "She's a person." Then he shouted back to the shelter, "Nira, run! I'll hold them." But she didn't run. She limped out of the hut, ankle still healing, silver skin glowing in the sunlight. "No," she said quietly. Jared turned. "What are you doing?" Her voice didn't tremble. "I'm not hiding again." She stepped beside him, holding her head high. "I choose where I belong." The lead slaver stepped forward, raising the collar. "Then choose chains, girl." Nira stared at it, then looked at Jared, and stepped behind him. Her hands rested on his shoulders. Her voice was clear. "I choose him." The slavers raised their weapons. Jared tensed, ready to fight. But before they could attack, Nira lifted her hand and her eyes flashed. A pulse of strange alien energy burst from her body. It wasn't bright, but it was strong enough to short out their gear. The slavers stumbled back, weapons sparking and useless. She looked at her hands, shocked. "I didn't know I could do that," Jared grinned. "Remind me never to make you angry." The slavers ran. They didn't want a deal with something they couldn't control. Nira didn't chase them. She just stood there. Free, truly free. That night, the stars were quiet again. The fire burned warm. Jared sat beside her, holding a cup of hot tea. She leaned against him, not for safety, but for comfort. "You didn't leave me," he said. "You didn't sell me." She replied. They sat in silence for a while. Then she said something soft, something that made his heart pause. "You were the trap, Jared." He blinked. "What?" She smiled. "I tried to escape you, but you caught me with kindness." And for the first time in her life, she was glad to be caught.